Hey, good afternoon. How you guys? It's David from Bali and Beyond and Janna.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Hi,
Janna
David.
Sailor. And Janna, hi.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here.
My pleasure.
For me, part of what we've been doing, interviewing people, sometimes people come that I've never met before. And they've been referred from friends, so Jenna and I met about 45 minutes ago, and we went like boom down the rabbit hole.
I was like 45 minutes. It feels like we've been friends forever.
I know.
Maybe we have.
Yes, maybe we have. We just went so, and right into talking about real life.
Real life.
And of course, that's our perception of real life. Who really knows what's real?
Yeah.
But so Jenna's shared with me about her journey, and she conducts an orchestra. It's our local orchestra here.
Well, I'll be guest conducting the Calgary Philharmonic next season, but
Nice.
I founded an all-female orchestra in Vancouver where I was living for about 12 years, so
Nice.
It's an all-female orchestra with a social action mandate to create social change through music.
Nice.
So.
What kind of social change?
Well, our first project was we partnered with an organization called Music Heals, and they do amazing work bringing music and music therapists into places like hospitals and making music therapy available to folks with Alzheimer's, children with autism, and just they were experiencing just tremendously impactful results in the quality of life and pain reduction with their music therapy programs. And I was so inspired by them, and I've always felt really strongly that music should be for everyone, and unfortunately due to the societal barriers that we've set up for ourselves, that's often not the case. Live music is not always accessible to everyone in society. So in an effort to bolster support for their organization, I put out a call to my wonderful colleagues in Vancouver, and I said, who wants to put on a concert that will raise money for this wonderful organization? And to my surprise, I got an overwhelming response, and it was all from women. And so kind of running with that theme, I said, okay, these women want to help. Let's see what we can do for other women in our community. So we partnered with Music Heals to bring a music therapy program to women living and working on Vancouver's downtown east side. And most of them are sex trade workers or transitioning out of the sex trade. So we wanted to give them a tool for self-expression and comfort and healing and whatever it was that they needed. So that was 2.5 years ago, and I'm happy to say that we raised enough money to run a pilot project, and that program is now healthy and well and running on its own. And
So the women that are the recipients, are they in some way getting involved in music themselves?
They have access to a music therapist several times a week. They're writing their own songs. They're performing their own songs.
Oh, wow.
They're, and some of them are learning how to play instruments or reconnecting with instruments that they played as a child as a means of self-expression. They do amazing work at the Wish Drop-In Center, where this program is running out of, and these are women that most of them are homeless, and as mentioned, they're working in the sex trade, and I felt very strongly that we wanted to bring some kind of to shine some light on those areas that are not always easy to talk about or address or look in the eye in society. And I chose Wish because that's an organization that I feel like, just because of the nature of the work that they do, people might not be as comfortable supporting what they do. but that made me the more determined to be involved and to support these women, and because these are our neighbors, these are people that we see every day and that make up our society. And
so were you living downtown?
I wasn't living downtown.
How did you connect?
Well, I was working downtown every day, and
Yes.
I would see these women,
Yes.
and many of them in and around the areas where I was working, where I was performing, where I was teaching. I was teaching on the downtown east side in the
Guest town?
in Chinatown.
Chinatown, okay,
And what they call a Sistema program, which is a program, after-school program for at-risk youth, and I was teaching music at this program. So
good for you.
it was an amazing experience. I really learned and really grew. It really challenged me in a lot of ways. And through that program, I met kids that their mothers worked in the sex trade, and so I became very involved in the downtown east side, and really I had developed a whole nother part of me, and as far as challenging me, and also deepening my compassion. And we were talking earlier about being present. I had to be 100% present with those kids. A lot of them had FAS, so fetal alcohol syndrome, or ADHD, and other traumas and undiagnosed things that just required you to be 100% with them, and 100% open-hearted and willing to just be there with them, and to deal with whatever the day would bring, because every day was different, or a different struggle, or a different gift, and you had to be ready to receive either. So.
Well, in a way, it's all gift.
Yes.
And it's just sometimes hard to see it that way, especially if you were in it, And I we talked earlier that I've been fortunate enough to have come through that world somewhat. I actually spent, it was a long time ago, but I spent some time some street time in Vancouver years and years ago. So it would be in the early 70s. Anyway, it was a long time ago, and I was a kid, and so that I have an idea about that, and I've been really fortunate to be able to work with lots of people ever since, in that are coming out of addiction. They're coming out of self-hate.
Yes.
And to I think that music, it's hard to say whether it's the sound or the presence that heals.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
When I lost in Chopin, in classical music, I can disappear. And so I think that when you bring an orchestra in, and it lifts people up, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It has the potential to, very definitely. And I would say, having been a professional musician for, my entire adult life, and having played the violin since I was 3 years old, some of my most profoundly spiritual experiences have been through music, and have been experiencing, what can be created with an orchestra. And to me, when I step into the concert hall, that's my temple. Like, that's my church. That's where I feel the most at home. But
so you're the pastor.
Maybe. I'll start thinking of myself a little differently.
The message of divinity.
Yeah, I mean, it is something that's it's really difficult to explain, like the energetic connection that you create, with the orchestra and with the audience. That is possible, and that's drawn, like, woven together through the energies and the vibrations.
Everybody
of music.
disappears.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and there's tears.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's great that you put that group together, and it's still going.
Yes.
Must have been hard to leave Vancouver.
Oh, it was tremendously. It was one of the the hardest hardest decisions ever. But also I felt like I could leave because I knew that the things I had created weren't necessarily mine. Like I was just kind of a conduit, that these things needed to be created, so I happened to be the person that, you know, was there to make it happen. Yes, and so, like, true to form, all of those things are still thriving. I'm still involved with Allegra, but I don't have to babysit. You know, I know that it's not necessarily mine, and it's not perpetuated by me, because, like I said, I just put out the call, and all these women responded, and it just this tremendous energy was created around it, and it became evident that it was something bigger than me, and it's something that needed a name and needed a mission, and that was just self-propelling, basically, and I was just there to facilitate. So in that way, it's kind of like this. I've had to learn a lot about letting go and non-attachment, especially to things surrounding my career. What a life change basically kind of swallowed me up, and there's been so many wonderful blessings. Even though, you know, when we're going through times of change, it can feel like you're tumbling around in the washing machine, but ultimately, it's.
I think that's important. You share a bit about that, because I think that people are watching. You know, I mean, you have shared with me already that and what happened was, you know, an amazing example of how what could look like the most terrible thing became the door into, you know, awakening. Yes. Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, longish story short. I'd been a professional violinist for ever since I was 13, basically, and so I'd been performing with orchestras and other projects and touring, and then I was in 2 car accidents within a 2-year period. The first one, it's actually pretty remarkable that my friend and I actually walked away because we were sideswiped by a semi, and then 2 years ago, just as I was recovering from that, I was really badly rear-ended. So to kind of complicate, you know, matters, I kept playing even with my injury, which resulted in a lot of nerve damage from me playing on, you know, my shoulder that was injured, my back that was injured, and with whiplash. And so from kind of pushing and resisting and you know, allowing my ambition to kind of drive me instead of my healing and my inner voice, I ended up not being able to play violin at all. And the doctors couldn't solve anything. My practitioners were kind of at the end of themselves, trying to fix my back and my neck, and like I said, these weird kind of neurological things where, you know, I'd go completely weak and I wouldn't be able to pick anything up, much less my instrument. And so basically they told me, like, you better, like, figure out a new path, a new career choice, because like, violin playing isn't going to be happening anytime soon or ever again. And so kind of just, you know, as we do when we're upset, or as I do at times, you know, flipping through page after page on the internet late into the night, and I stumbled across this yoga center in Costa Rica that I remembered, like, years and years ago my cousin had referred to, and she'd been there, and she said she had an amazing experience, and here I'd stumbled across it, and I was like, well, what the heck, they're offering a teacher training next week, I guess I'll go, not like I'm doing anything.
So were you a practitioner though? You
in a casual way. Yes. And just because, you know, we were always told on tour, oh, take care of your body, go do yoga. But I wasn't interested in the spiritual aspect of it at all. In fact, I was pretty much an atheist. And so I always say that, you know, yoga brought me back to God, and brought me back to myself and to so many things. And to make a long story short, I was in Costa Rica for 6 weeks. When I went there, I was in so much pain on the plane. I cried the whole way, and I was in such a hurry rushing out the door that I forgot my stack of pain meds on the table. So I was like, I guess I'm just going to Costa Rica to die. This pain is like just unbelievable, and I couldn't sit on the plane. Like I had to just walk and walk around. And, just they basically like put me back in my seat for a takeoff and landing, and then they couldn't keep me in there. So I was there for 6 weeks, and for the first 2 weeks, I really couldn't do the actual practice. They're like, well, you can be here, but I don't know if you'll actually pass the course. And I was like, that's fine. I don't really know what's going on in my life right now. But after 6 weeks of doing yoga and getting up at 5 in the morning and meditating for like 2 hours first thing in the morning, and then doing yoga like for the rest of the day and swimming in the ocean, and then ending the day with meditation, I went home with a new body and a new brain. And kind of just as an aside, I could play violin again because my body and my mind and all those so much of the resistance, both mental and physical, had been dissolved. And so that's it.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it was really a remarkable
universe
thing.
God, whatever we want to call it, just said, okay, you're coming to me.
Yeah.
And me, in my interpretation of your coming to me, is to be present, to come into the moment. And I suspect that you became more grateful.
Oh, absolutely.
And more loving and more available.
Yeah, and less of a victim. I mean, that's still something that I fall into, but it
never
was
me. We all.
Well, good for you. Teach me, sensei.
I'm bullshitting.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, fuck! I can't believe I did that again.
Yeah. Well, I think that something that just reminded me of was about 3/4 of the way through my training, I felt like I finally experienced life through my body and my eyes, instead of kind of, being lost in whatever kind of whirlwind.
So you had an awakening?
Yes. Very definitely. I mean, it's an ongoing process and to stay awake. But it was just like an amazing experience of experiencing who I actually was and who I actually am. And I can't really even explain what led up to that, but it was just like a lot of peeling away the layers of things I'd been taught, things I just adopted.
So we kind of see who we're not.
Yes.
As much
exactly.
as who we are, because
sure.
It's almost impossible to say who we are.
Yes.
Because we're none of the things we thought we were.
Totally.
Like, oh shit! Okay, that was all bullshit.
It's like, now what?
That's right.
Yeah.
I like, and I repeat it often, but there was a book I read years and years and years ago. It was a kind of a layman's Buddhist text, and they, in the book, it talked about the monk who had become enlightened, and they asked him, what did he do before he became enlightened? And he said, well, I used to chop wood and carry water. And he said, well, now what do you do since your enlightenment? He said, I chop wood and carry water. And I think the book was actually called Chop Wood and Carry Water. So nothing changes and everything changes.
Yes, absolutely.
Good for you. I mean, even though, who's to say who's you, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Hi.
Who's here? We have
Hi,
some
honey.
precious visitors.
What are you doing in there? We've had company drop by. Yeah.
Want to come say hi?
Yeah.
Come sit with us. It's comfy over
Do you want to come
here.
sit with us? That's a pretty amazing story.
Well, thanks for receiving it.
Mm-hmm. That's a very cool story, and it's interesting. It's hard to say, in my opinion, what's us and what's grace.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Yeah. Because sometimes in recovery, people say, "Oh, you've worked so hard," and well, you made the decision.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to say.
Yeah.
Whether the decision was made and it just took me a while to catch on. Or whether it's all gift.
Yes.
And at one level, I tend to believe that that's the case. You know,
right.
that we're often resisting the gift.
Yes, absolutely.
And you know, like what you said about the what you started in Vancouver. You know, that I think it's cool that you don't identify with it. You know, you're not like, oh, I did this, I did that. It seemed to have come through you.
Yeah.
And you know, and you'd say that's the same with music when you play.
Yes. It was interesting because I still struggle a little bit with my relationship with the violin, because it was such just how I was trained in it was such a different kind of mindset, and I still struggle. I struggle with just allowing things to flow through the violin.
Mm-hmm.
But with conducting, I feel like that's somehow I'm more aligned with that, and that just seems to happen, and things just seem to line up. Like I put myself out there, and things come to me. Whereas with violin, it's been like an incredible part of my journey. And I'm really grateful for that process, and it got me to certain places.
Mm-hmm.
And now, and perhaps that place is conducting, and you know, I need to just allow that to that time to pass.
Yeah.
But so it's been really interesting, because it was like all the things that were kind of supposed to happen with violin happened with conducting, because I was in the right place and I prepared myself. I'd gone through all of these different experiences, and conducting just pushed me to expand in so many ways, just as a person and as an individual. Whereas violin, you know, I was one of many in the section,
Mm-hmm.
but with conducting, there's no place to hide. You're completely vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely you. So you have to be completely grounded, completely present, and know your purpose. Whereas when I was, you know, you're a violinist, you're comfortable like following the crowd. So
Mm-hmm.
it really pushed me to really figure out who I was and what I wanted to say, and why I was there, and how I could most effectively connect with those around me, and those that you know, I was creating with. So
I have a question. I don't know. With conducting, so you're conducting a song, you know, a piece that was been written by somebody else, maybe 300 years ago, and so there isn't a lot of room for making shit up.
This is true. There's definitely you know, a tradition there, and you know, you have all kinds of sources, both you know, academic and musical, to rely on. But at the same time, what comes through, and I always say that these pieces of music wouldn't exist today if they didn't still have something to say to us.
Of course,
and
yeah.
If there wasn't that kind of underlying humanity that comes through, that is you know, still impacting people. So I try to find that first and foremost. Where's the humanity? What's the message in this? And then go to those other kinds of sources to make sure that I'm interpreting it in an acceptable manner. but the humanity always has to come first.
So can you take a song, say like something from you know, from Leonard Cohen, and turn it into a big orchestra piece?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I always just say that, like, so the orchestra is far more flexible and versatile than we think. Just about, you can add an orchestra to just about any art form, and it'll just amplify it. That's what it does. That's everything that that happens in the orchestra. It's just made bigger and brighter, and more expansive, just even not just sonically, but also like energetically. So
I love, you know, classical music, and I love the orchestra. And as we're talking, I'm thinking, I have to go more. You know.
Yeah.
Do we have a great orchestra in Calgary?
We do, absolutely, and they would love your support. And it's always an incredibly moving experience for me. Not only like playing in the orchestra, but experiencing music and watching people create music together, because you know, watching news and all the terrible things that are going on, and I try to be very careful about what I allow in, but you know, when you see like 80 people in an orchestra all working together with the same vision and the same, you know, intent, that I'm always, it always brings a lump to my throat, because it's like with all the crazy things and overcoming our humanness and the ego and all of our differences, which we do have, as you know, we see each other every day at rehearsal in the orchestra. You know, we have to overcome. There's always things to overcome in order to create. Yes.
In
do something
together.
bigger. Yes. Do something bigger, and we come together to create something bigger and something better than what, you know, we can do individually. So
I was exposed to a man. I traveled with him a little bit and did some group work with him, and he had his PhD in music, and he was Spanish and actually didn't speak English.
Oh, amazing.
And we just doctored in music, and so we did some group work together, quite a bit of it, and he would use music. And, he would take us, you know. So he, you know, played like 3 hours of music, you know, and all, you know, and take us to amazing places.
Yes, absolutely.
And in ethereal, you know, outer worldly, and with the music, and bring us back. You know, and it was, he really introduced me. I've got some of his sets, you know, introduced me to some amazing music, and I think music heals.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely.
Hip-hop too.
Well, maybe it does in a sense that, you know, gets what's inside out, but but no, I always say that like music, it's like it transcends language, and it's the ultimate human connector. Like you know, you can. It always amazes me. You know, we were traveling back in January, and you know, we'd hear the same piece of music, you know, there as we would, you know, back home, and everybody would have the same reaction to it. It's kind of this universal thing that the humanity that runs through it. Like,
so are you performing right now with?
Yes.
With the Calgary.
Yes. So I'm an extra, so I'm essentially on call with them. So when they need an additional player, I you know, I run out the door and go play for them. But with my conducting career, it's I'm not able to play full time with any orchestra with violin. So and I have a number of my own projects. So so it's a balancing act for sure. And
so if people wanted to support you in your projects, or be where you were because you're somebody that people would want to be around, how would they find you? Like,
absolutely.
In your projects, if you have a website?
For sure, yes.
Okay, so we're
Janna.
We're going to post that. We'll post that.
It all up.
And do you teach yoga?
I do.
Nice.
Yes, I do.
Where do you teach?
I mean, mostly private sessions. That's what I love to do, and in smaller groups. So that's. I feel like that yoga is a deeply personal and healing thing. So I love to be able to offer that in more intimate situations. So
I'm not practicing yoga that much anymore, but for 3 years I practiced Bikram.
Oh, amazing.
3 or 4 times a week, which was a pretty big deal for me.
Yeah.
I loved it. And then I went to LA and actually did sessions with the big guy.
Okay.
And it was, you know, life changing.
Yes.
And I hate to say this, but I have to get back to yoga.
Well, I mean, but people always forget that yoga is more than just the asana, just more than the physical practice. Like your business and what you're doing, and what you're creating, and your meditation practice, and this conversation. To me, that's all yoga. Like that's all. That's all part of it. So
the yoga of life.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So what else can we tell them about you? What else would you like to share? What were you thinking when you came that would be nice to?
Oh, you know what? I was thinking, I'm like, we're having this conversation about meditation, but right now I feel like I'm the world's worst meditator. I mean, I feel like I this morning I kind of came to a conclusion that, you know, meditation is whatever brings you back to yourself. Yes. That's kind of what came to me in my quiet session, because sometimes you know, my meditation practice, which is every day, but it doesn't always look the same. And I guess that's why I was feeling like, you know, I'm a terrible meditator, is that it doesn't always follow the, you know, the what I think it should look like, or what we've told it should be looking like, you know, sitting on your stool erect.
What do you think of our stools?
The stools are amazing. If I had one of these stools, I think I'd do. I'd sit on them more.
I think we can work something out.
Amazing.
I think we can. So I tell people that I'm, you know, I've been a resistant, reluctant meditator for 40 years. You know, I've been in and out of the practice, you know, sometimes more devout than others. And I was listening to Jay Shetty yesterday. You know, Jay, he's his teacher, and he's talking about 2 hours in the morning, every morning. You know, breath work, and then meditation, and then his yoga practice, and you know, every single morning for 2 hours. I'm thinking, that bugger. He's really committed. Eh?
Yeah,
Used to watch an interview of him last night talking to Russell Brent. Yeah, Russell Brent. And do you know Russell?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and we all know Russell's like he's our brother, right?
Oh.
You know, he's not, but yeah. Well, I think everybody thinks of Russell as the guy next door. and anyway, they were talking about his awakening and his meditation, and this fellow is Jay Shetty, right? Yeah, had been I think if I'm talking about the right guy, had been a monk, and for a short period of time in his life, and I think he met a girl.
Oh, that changed everything.
That kid. So, but you do have a practice.
I do have a practice. What I was getting to was, you know, sometimes my meditation is writing, you know, just totally emptying myself, and then I can sit.
A lot of people who, you know, to find that connection within themselves, to be present, to be in the moment. I think it's almost more important to have a daily practice, and that brings them into that space.
Yes.
And in your situation, because of the awakening that you've had, I think you can get there. You can be there all the time. You can get there in any moment.
Well, and there's different ways. Like I'm constantly like we were talking a lot about music. Sometimes, like I feel like that's my way of connecting. That's my way of tapping in and feeling completely present, and is through experiencing music and having it flow through me as a very physical experience. But I mean, there's always, you know, you do need to have that quieting and becoming really present and going within, and seeing what's there. That's always. You know, that's a daily practice to being a healthy, functioning human being. And even though it seems like kind of a sobering practice, it's also like the beginning of joy.
Yes.
So.
Yes. So we talked about earlier. I never asked you what you thought of my 4 little ways of getting there.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
I think you should, if you haven't already, put them out everywhere.
Well, that's what I'm going to right now.
Okay, perfect.
We were talking earlier about, I think that true peace, joy that you just spoke of, and comes from connecting with the one. We call it God, call it universal intelligence, call it now. And that in my experience, the ways to get there, and there's multitude of them, but this one is through prayer. And for me, if I had for most of my life imagined that power was separate from me, and I discovered that actually had become separate from it. Yes. In a way, and that when I would stop to pray, and I'm not just talking about let's make a deal prayers.
Right.
You know, get me out of this one, baby, and I'll be yours forever.
And guess,
although those are necessary too sometimes.
Yes.
You know, but just an idea of stopping to connect with whatever it is that we imagine is that power greater than us, and in a prayer. I think that's one way of connecting.
Yes,
and it's a little subtle, because it may be hard to tell that that's what's happening, but as we do it for a long time, it becomes more clear that that's what we're doing. and it's outside of our story, you know, often our victim story, or you know, and the other thing is meditation. You know, it's important because we get to know ourselves or see ourselves through the practice, and the gratitude. Yeah, I think gratitude is a way also to connect with that power, to be more present. And awakening is interesting because people are saying, you know, how do I become enlightened? How do I become, what is enlightenment? What is awakening? And I think when we discover, my experience is that when we discover the moment, when we really get here now in presence, we've awakened.
Right.
And so I think we're all kind of awake, we're just not aware of it. Do you know what I mean? Because we're caught in our story. We're caught in, you know, I'm too short, or I'm too tall, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or you know, or I'm the best. You know.
Right. And once we take away those things that aren't actually us,
yes,
and our true selves can
emerge.
Yeah.
And it's interesting though. I can't actually take those away, but if I'm present in this moment, those fall away.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, and they fall away, and they're like, oh. So gratitude, prayer, meditation, and service.
Yes, I loved your service.
Yeah, and you know, I see that that's been a big piece of your life. You know,
it has been.
Yes, and what happens is that service becomes everything. You know, we're no longer doing to get.
Yes.
We've evolved into a possibility of just giving to give.
And that was a huge step for me in overcoming my own victimhood.
Yes.
Victimhood in working with you know, these children that were going through incredibly difficult circumstances, and these women that had unbelievable struggles on a daily basis. And then there's no excuse, there's no room. Because there's no room for your own victimhood in there.
And I mean, there's no end to the place to keep giving. You've had an awakening experience. You recognize it all around you. There's people drifting, you know, or trying to figure out what's going on, or doing things to organize their life as if that works.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's no end to those places. But if you're new in Calgary.
Yes, I am.
And so if you have, I might, you know, if you're looking for places to connect where you can, you know, work with people.
Yes, absolutely.
I might have some tips for you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
More wonderful people to meet.
Well, you know, and there's lots of folks, I mean, at all levels of society that if they're in my opinion, if it doesn't matter how much money we have, it doesn't matter how much what kind of a relationship we're in, or what kind of a car we have, or you know, where we're living, those things don't bring us that peace that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so there's folks everywhere that are, I think, no matter what situation they're in, they're still looking. They're like,
yes.
Okay, what am I missing?
Yes.
So we hope, our vision with the meditation stools, I thought actually in the beginning that I was just going to sell meditation spaces, and then this whole other thing has evolved. You know, it's like, oh my gosh. So, but these aren't they great?
They're beautiful. They feel amazing.
They're so meditation. Our goal, our thought, is to lift the vibration of the planet, one meditator at a time. Not a huge goal, is it? But my vision is that we have a meditation space in every home, like a sacred space or meditation space in every home, and many parts of the world that exists already. You know, they have a temple in their home, or they have a you know, but a meditation space in every home, and every place of work.
Yes. Yeah, we forget we can bring our full selves and our spiritual selves to work.
Yes, yeah. You know, and so that's the deal. And my people that I work with told me I'm supposed to talk about this every once in a while.
Yes.
So I'm just
here it is.
Because I forget to talk about it. So this is it. And so meditation space in every place, and that would be cool. And then and great music.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'll bet you could put together a set of amazing classical music to meditate to.
Yes, absolutely.
You could, couldn't you?
Yes.
Maybe we should do that.
Sure, it's a plan.
Yes.
And mantra. I mean, some people really connect to the sound.
Yes.
And I'm one of those people. So it's like pretty much every time I come to meditate, and pretty much every day I do a mantra if that feels right in my body to to resonate with those frequencies and those intentions that are so imbued with with power over decades and generations, and have been used by so many yogis and ascended masters. And there's so much to it. I have a kind of a freaky meditation story that so I had a crazy infection that would not go away, and I was on round after round of medication for 6 weeks on end, just one right after the other. It was a very serious infection that I'd been hospitalized for. And so I decided as soon as I got out of the hospital that I was going to do a 40-day Kundalini meditation. And this was back at the end of January. So this is fairly recent. So I'm still kind of like vibing high from this. And so I did this 40-day Kundalini healing mantra. And I was struggling all the way through this time, still on these medications. On day 40, I had an appointment that had been booked like ages ago with this infection specialist, and I woke up that morning and there was no sign of the infection anywhere. Whereas like the day before, like I was still raging, and I was like, okay, well, I guess good thing I'm going to see this specialist. And I went, and I was like, I'm sorry, it's too late to cancel my appointment. I'm here, but I can't find my infection anywhere. And she ran a whole bunch of tests, and sure enough, it was gone. And for me, that was, you can come to all kinds of conclusions about that. But for me, it was like working with those vibrations every day for 40 days, and just sitting in that and creating that vibration, that energy for myself, for my body to respond to, and to give my body whatever it needed, because obviously the medical system and even all the good nutrition and stuff wasn't giving my body and my spirit exactly what I needed. But through the practice, it I was ministered to and healed.
Nice.
So
wow.
Anyway, that was my freaky meditation story. Little plug for meditating.
That's a great story. That is really a great story. Thank you so much. Well, I think you're an inspiration.
Oh.
Yeah, I really do. And I'm awfully happy to have met you today. And
you too. It was the highlight of my day and my week, for sure, in this beautiful space.
Thank you. And so we're going to keep our eye on you, watch you as you go into your career and conduct. There's not that many women conductors.
It's very true.
And so you're breaking into new realms a bit and leading the pack.
It's true. It's true. We're all doing it together.
Yes. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for being a great example of healing yourself. Not really, but being healed, allowing the healing to happen, and serving community. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Can I give you a hug?
Absolutely. All the hugs, the better. I'm going to fall off the great stool, but
thanks.
thank you so much.
All right. Thanks you guys. Love